Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're taking a hard look at something that, honestly, way too many of us treat as a total luxury. But let me tell you, from the perspective of a cardiologist, getting enough sleep is literally a matter of life and death. We're going to dig into the data and uncover the silent, completely invisible damage that's actually happening inside your arteries when you decide to shortchange your sleep.
Okay, let's dive into this. The main thing to keep in mind today is this. Sleep isn't just an optional recovery. It is an active repair. It's not just downtime, It's not this passive screensaver mode for your brain that you can just casually trade away to cram for a test, game all night, or binge watch Netflix. No way. Sleep is a critical, highly active biological state.
Section 1. Sleep is active repair, basically your body's night shift. Which brings us to the nocturnal blood pressure dip, or shutting down the shop. See, while you're lying in bed completely unconscious, your cardiovascular system isn't just turned off. It's actually doing some of its most vital work. When you finally fall into a proper sleep, and by the way, keeping consistent sleep hours is absolutely key here, because irregular schedules totally confuse this process, your body broadly switches its nervous system over to its calming branch. That's the parasympathetic, or the rest and digest mode. When that flip happens, your heart rate slows down, and your blood vessels physically relax and widen out. And because those blood vessels are relaxing and widening, your blood pressure naturally falls. Now, typically, it should drop by exactly 10 to 20%. And that percentage right there, that is a non-negotiable biological requirement for a healthy heart. Just think of your cardiovascular system kind of like a super busy supermarket. All day long, the tills are ringing, the doors are sliding open and shut. It's just chaotic, nonstop action. But night, that's when the shop shutters finally come down. The staff can restock the shelves, sweep the floors, and the whole store recovers before the madness starts all over again the next morning. That 10 to 20% blood pressure dip is literally your heart and your arteries successfully pulling those shutters down. But here's the terrifying part. When you lack sleep, or you just keep your body totally confused about when it's supposed to sleep, those shutters stay open, the pressure stays high, that vital dip gets blunted, or for some folks, it completely vanishes, all because the body never fully makes that switch into calming mode. So your blood pressure stays elevated around the clock, meaning your heart and arteries never get their overnight break. And as a cardiologist, I can tell you for a fact, chronically raised blood pressure from a lack of sleep is one of the absolute biggest drivers of heart attacks and strokes. Your internal shop never closes, the shelves never get restocked, and eventually, the whole system just breaks down.
Let's move to Section 2, high cortisol and blood sugar, a body stuck in alarm mode.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the healthy daily rhythm of your stress hormones, chiefly cortisol. Cortisol gets a pretty bad rap, but it's genuinely essential to keep you alive. Just look at how it's supposed to function. Early morning, you get the sharp surge, right? That surge is what jolts you out of bed and gives you the energy to actually face the day. By midday, it's actively keeping your blood sugar topped up so your brain and muscles have fuel to burn. And then crucially, at nighttime, it's supposed to tail off and fall to its absolute lowest point so your body can actually rest.
But poor, irregular sleep completely shatters this timeline. A broken rhythm leaves your body in a constant state of alarm. By not sleeping properly, your cortisol stays dangerously elevated straight into the night. It leaves your system stuck in this low-grade, constant state of panic, acting as though there's an imminent physical threat out there that just never quite passes.
And this constant alarm state builds into a seriously devastating cycle. Because cortisol is high all the time, particularly overnight, we hit step 1. It signals your liver to dump stored glucose, readying you for action. That leads directly to step 2, your blood sugar suddenly running constantly higher than it ever should, which forces step 3, your body frantically pumping out insulin just to cope with all that excess sugar. And finally, step 4, over the years, this relentless demand just wears the entire system down. This leads directly to insulin resistance, prediabetes, and eventually full-blown diabetes, which, of course, throws the door wide open for massive cardiovascular issues.
Oh, and the damage from cortisol doesn't even end there. Cortisol actively drives visceral fat storage. It basically commands your body to store fat specifically right around your abdominal organs. And this visceral fat, it's incredibly dangerous because it directly sets the stage for our next major biological threat. Section 3. A slow internal fire. The inflammation threat. From a cardiology standpoint, inflammation sits right at the very center of how heart disease develops. So why does a lack of sleep actually cause inflammation? Well, it goes all the way back to human evolution. Your body literally reads sleep deprivation as a biological threat. It thinks something is terribly wrong, like you're going through a period of intense stress or physical danger. So to protect you, it responds by ramping up the production of inflammatory molecules. It's bracing for an injury or an infection, which, made perfect sense for our ancestors surviving out in the wild.
The problem is, modern sleep loss keeps that ancestral alarm bell ringing every single night. And that brings us to the arteries themselves. There is this massive public misconception that the fatty plaques building up inside your coronary arteries are just like harmless little bits of grease that sit there doing nothing. But the reality is way more terrifying. Those fatty plaques are highly inflamed, they are biologically active, and they are extremely unstable.
Because you aren't sleeping. Instead of a useful brief burst of immune defense, you're getting a low, constant fire of inflammation smoldering throughout your blood vessels, day and night. And this is exactly how a stable artery turns dangerous. It is the inflammation that makes the plaque in your arteries likely to rupture. And when it ruptures, boom, it triggers the blood clot that causes a heart attack. Every single night of poor sleep is quietly adding fuel to the exact process that turns a perfectly stable artery into a life-threatening one.
Finally, Section 4.
Making sleep non-negotiable. The threat stack. So the crucial point is this. When you don't sleep, you are stacking these mechanisms right on top of each other. You've got raised blood pressure because your body never pulled those shop shutters down. You've got raised cortisol, which is keeping your blood sugar high and packing on dangerous visceral fat. And on top of all that, you have a slow internal fire of inflammation, actively destabilizing the plaque in your heart. These three mechanisms are all working together, all at once, silently destroying your cardiovascular health. And honestly, the scariest part? This is all happening while you feel completely fine, right up until the day something breaks.
And this is exactly why becoming a genuinely good sleeper is the ultimate non-negotiable health upgrade. Your brain, your heart, every other organ in your body, they need sleep every bit as much as they need a good diet and regular exercise. The sheer amount of regulation and repair that happens while you're unconscious is astonishing. Sleep belongs in that absolute top tier of health priorities. So how do we fix it? Well, start by locking in a consistent bedtime to anchor that circadian rhythm. Keep your bedroom nice and cool to help initiate that nocturnal blood pressure dip we talked about. And aggressively block out late-night blue light so your cortisol can actually fall. Sleep is not just an afterthought you can sacrifice because life gets busy.
So I want to leave you with this one question to chew on. Is a late-night binge watch really worth the silent alarm bells ringing in your arteries? Think about the active repair your heart desperately needs tonight. Think about giving your cardiovascular system the chance to finally shut the shop down and pull those shutters closed. I really hope this explainer has given you a clear, structural understanding of why you might need to rethink your bedtime habits tonight. Thanks for joining me.